Maybe it was the first night here. We were talking about what a transformational leader looks like in the church today. I just wrote a note on the side of my journal, said, Lord, am I one of those? Will I be one of those?
It started in a simple rectory in Epworth, England, and would eventually grow to become a worldwide movement known as Methodism. It's here where John and Charles Wesley were born and spent their childhood. They would go on to become priests of the Church of England and eventually the founders of the Methodist Church. Today, the United Methodist Church is the second largest Protestant denomination in the world, yet is experiencing decline. It's also here where countless United Methodist clergy and lay members make pilgrimage each year.
John Wesley has been a big part of my life growing up, mostly because of my father, somebody who just really is enamored with John Wesley and has made me fall in love with the man too.
Well, Jared is, it's really touched my life, his moving into ministry, and it's good to be here with him.
And I have felt my ministry to be an extension of his ministry.
In 2012, at a crucial time in the life of the denomination, two international agencies of the United Methodist Church, the General Board of Discipleship and the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry, led a group from the US on a 10-day pilgrimage throughout England. They followed in the footsteps of John and Charles Wesley. Among the group were 6 newly commissioned clergy, and along the way, they shared how the journey helped shape their ministries in the midst of a changing denomination, including Jared Preset from East Ohio, a former police officer and now United Methodist pastor.
I'm becoming convinced, if not already, that the two places pastors, young pastors in particular, need to visit is the Holy Lands in England. Walk the footsteps of Jesus and walk the footsteps of John Wesley.
I wonder about the future of the church a lot.
Emily Carroll is an energetic pastor at Court Street United Methodist Church in Fulton, Missouri, raised by a Baptist father and the United Church of Christ mother.
I believe in the United Methodist Church, but I think that it's scary right now. It's a different landscape than it's ever been before.
With Salisbury being home base, the Pilgrims immersed themselves in 18th century England while following the mission and ministry of John and Charles Wesley, contrasting that world with their own present-day challenges. They travelled to Epworth, Oxford, Bristol, Bawtry, and London.
There's not many ministers, there's not many people.
This year, 2012, has been a pivotal year in the life of our denomination, and a lot of people say that we're at a junction.
Daniel and Heyman were married not long before the pilgrimage and live outside of Chicago. Both are born of first-generation Koreans.
There's a lot of change needed, and it can be for good or for ill, and so I do think that I am participating in this pilgrimage in a timely manner.
I think what struck me today the most was the visit to the Salisbury Methodist Church. I felt the connectional aspect of our faith, that we are really one with each other, even if we're not always on the same page.
We're at Lincoln College, where John Wesley was a fellow here, and it was from here that Charles invited him to lead the Holy Club at Christ Church College. There's John on the wall.
That's good.
Ellen Rasmussen serves at Wesley United Methodist Church in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
I don't fit into the mold, and I'll be frank, I think strong women are a challenge to our boards of ordained ministry. The burden of ministry, the weight of all of it is huge, but it's also an incredible, humbling privilege.
We're here at Bristol Cathedral, and this is a very significant Methodist heritage site because it's where the quotation, "I look upon all the world as my parish," comes from.
I believe that we have lost some of things that John Wesley brought. One of them is charismatism.
Mary Meriti became a full elder not long after the pilgrimage. She was born in Kenya and is now a US citizen, living and working in Dallas, Texas. She was a Bible translator in Africa before coming to America.
We have become so private. We are so private that we are not able to interact with people. I don't want to share or I don't want to interact. Then you'll not grow, because how will you be able to share the development and to share about Christ? And so I feel we have lost it somewhere.
The New Room in Bristol, built by John Wesley in 1739, is the oldest Methodist chapel in the world and has been called the cradle of the early Methodist movement.
Can I just say a really warm welcome to the New Room. It's really lovely that you are able to come here and visit this.
As we were visiting those sites, especially today at the New Room, and we were up there in the pulpit, I had this desire to preach.
At times along the journey, the pilgrims seemed to make startling comparisons between the challenges of Wesley's ministry and their own role in the modern church.
I challenge a lot of my colleagues on a regular basis to not put so much pressure on young clergy and to not think that we're the saviors of this denomination. We have a savior already, Jesus Christ. And I try really hard to help my colleagues understand that it's not our job. It's all of our jobs with the power of Christ. It is immense pressure sometimes.
Tell me about that.
Well, young clergy right now have major pressure on them. They're going to be the saviors of the church, don't you know? We're the ones that are going to get people our age back in the pews. We're the ones that are going to revolutionize church and United Methodism. And yeah, it's a pressure cooker sometimes. What if I screw this up?
I do think myself and other young clergies I talk to are feeling overwhelmed at times at the weight that we feel the church is putting on our shoulders. That we need to be the leaders, the next generation who turns this ship around.
While Jared is aware of these struggles, he also conveys tremendous hope for the future.
I wholeheartedly believe we're on the verge of a revival, a reawakening of some sorts. I don't think God has given up on the Methodist Church, and I'm here to say God hasn't given up on the Methodist Church, and I'm here to, I don't feel like I have to be a savior. I just have to preach about the Savior, Jesus Christ, and that's what I want to do day in and day out and week in and week out, is just preach Christ and Christ crucified.
Maybe there are high expectations, and I know there's a lot, that the church is wanting to do, right? I don't think we're burdened by those expectations, because the good news is there are many of us who are coming into the church because we're passionate about God's good news for this world. So I don't feel that pressure.
Dr. David Lowes Watson, the resident Wesley scholar on the pilgrimage.
I can understand how candidates for ministry feel pressured. We measure the church and its ministry and mission, for one thing, increase in membership, but then also in ways that the gospel can be made attractive to people. We don't need to do either of those things. It is God who creates the church. It is God who will call people into the church. And therefore we must trust that God's Spirit is what actually empowers the church. But our task as the church is to make sure that they are well prepared, but at the same time that we honor their call.
I felt a calling on my life to be a pastor before being a cop. One of my first calls I was on, I was scared stiff. I didn't know what I was doing. And my lieutenant pulled me aside and he said, "Look, Jared, you don't know what you're doing. I know you don't know what you're doing. You're new. None of us knew what we were doing when we were new. Just pretend like you do, and then figure it out later." And I guess the same is with ministry. I'm kind of pretending I know what I'm doing. I'm relying on God's Spirit to help me discern and give me the wisdom I need.
John Wesley was raised by people that were pretty strict.
The children would have spent probably 5 to 6 hours a day being educated down here.
He didn't always see eye to eye with his father. He almost died in a fire. And it makes me think of when I crest the hill of the road where I grew up and I see the cornfields of Lafayette County, Missouri. Even though my parents don't always see eye to eye with me, even though we disagree, it still feels like home.
It's really interesting to be able to walk the same cobblestones, sort of seeing what kind of challenges he may have had to deal with. Wesley's time was hectic, the Industrial Revolution, the wars going on, but God was still faithful. God called forth a servant called John Wesley to make a positive impact in his time.
1, 2, 3, go! Yes, perfect!
Now you're way out having fun, feeling groovy. Leave your heart to clear your head, such a good day. All the way up in the clouds, floating through the air. Take a look around, see what's there.
They traveled on a personal pilgrimage. Daniel, Haman, Jared, Mary, Emily, and Ellen. Each expressed how the pilgrimage strengthened their ministries and, more importantly, their faith.
You know, I've been able to hear God's voice. Again, telling me just do the work I've called you to in the context I've called you to do it in. And that's one reason I think this trip to England, this pilgrimage is just so critical for young clergy to make, for 2 reasons. One, we're learning the history of our church, the theology of our church, as we walk the footsteps of John and Charles Wesley. And 2, it's a place of renewal and refreshment.
I have to say I've been refreshed. I am definitely going to miss this. I wish I could be here longer. But I think, you know, what this process has allowed me to do is reflect on my life as a pastor, my call as a pastor, reflect on my theology as a Wesleyan.
This has just been a transforming journey. And to have communion at the rail in this chapel in a covenant renewal service just renews that commitment to serve.
I believe John Wesley, this is what he did, helping the poor, meeting people where they are at the point in their own places and at the point of needs. We have to go out there, and that's the only way that you can be able to be fruitful.
There's an aspect to the pilgrimage that's beyond the conscious. We've been formed. Something's been planted in us, and we'll have to find out how that will manifest and bear fruit over time.
A little bit of a journey. Ups and downs, highs and lows. And these are those tears that are good and bad.
Tell me the good parts for a minute.
But I'm not alone. I am not alone in this. Itinerant ministry can feel awfully lonely sometimes.
John Wesley went out to the people on the front lines in the trenches, got himself dirty doing good, and figured out the theology that way. And I think that's the right way to do theology. And that's the right way to flourish a church. And we're going to do it again.